A new contender has entered the AI developer tools battle. Feels like we're getting a new one of these a week at the moment, but I'm talking about Windsurf from Codium. So let's go ahead and see why they think they're better and what's different from what I would say is the current leader, Cursor. When you open it up, it's going to look very familiar, and that's because, like Cursor, it's a fork of VS Code. Let's first take a quick look at the features that Windsurf and Cursor share, and then we'll take a look at the big selling point, which is this Cascade feature over here, and how that differs from Cursor's Composer. So I've opened up the same project in both Windsurf and Cursor so we can see how these features compare. First up, let's take a look at the completion features. I'm not too bothered about testing the inline completion too much as they're both going to excel at this, but more specifically the one that predicts your next intent. Windsurf calls this super complete and Cursor calls it tab. So let's say if I wanted to add in a field here for someone's Twitter handle, if I was to start typing this out in my default values here, so if we add in Twitter, let's see what it will suggest for us next. So if I scroll down to where my form field is, if I want it above the URL, for example, I'm going to add in a space here, and you can see the Windsurf is actually suggesting that I get rid of my URL input and rename it to Twitter. Not exactly what I want, so let's just go ahead and give it a helping hand, type out form here, and you can see there that it's gone ahead and correctly auto-completed that I wanted a separate input for Twitter. Another thing I want to do is actually link up the reset logic here, so this should be a little bit of an easier test. If I go ahead and define an onReset function, it'll go ahead and create that with autocomplete. Let's scroll down to my button and see if it picks up the intent that I want to add that as an event handler, and there you go, it's picked that up. Over in Cursor then, let's try the same thing. So I'll go ahead and add in that Twitter line there, and let's see what it thinks we should do next. If I go down to where my form input of URL was and I add in that new space, you can see it's actually suggesting that we get that form field in there, and you can see that it's not fully complete yet. So I'm actually gonna have to go into the label and then see if that will finish it off for us. There we go. And there you go, we've got that input. That was a little bit quicker than Windsurf, but this experience is gonna vary from time to time. Let's go ahead and add in our on reset here. So that's gonna be on reset. It's done the same auto completion there. And we'll scroll down to where that button was and we'll see what it suggests here. And you can see, there we go, it's added in that event handler for us. Next up, let's check out the inline chat and refactoring tools. I believe this is called Command in Windsurf and then Command K in Cursor. So let's see if it can make these buttons side by side here. So if I select both these buttons, it's Command I in Windsurf. I'll say, can you make these buttons side by side like so, hit enter and see what it does there. You can see it's made some changes. It's going to ask me to accept this. I'll click accept and then save that. And you see it's done exactly as I asked. Now, one thing worth pointing out, if I go ahead and do Command I again, you can see we can also select a model down here. So this was using the Codium fast model. We could change this to Claude or GPT if we wanted to as well. Let's try the same thing in Cursor then. So I'll select my two buttons here. It's Command K in Cursor, and I'll go ahead and ask it, can you make these buttons side by side? It's worth pointing out this is using Claude 3.5 Sonnet. I'm not actually too fussed about comparing the models here as these are constantly changing and you can just select the ones that you prefer. I think it's more important to test the productivity of the user experience here. So if we go ahead and hit enter here, you'll see it's going to go ahead and make the code changes. You can see the before and the after. I can click accept. I'll save this and you can see it's pretty much made the exact same change there. So between Windsurf and Cursor, there's only a tiny difference, which I think they've used a different value for the gap. I think Windsurf used gap 2, Cursor's used gap 4. So they've done pretty much the same thing there. This command experience in both of them also extends to the terminal. So here in Windsurf, if I do Command I, you can see we get the prompt box, and we can also select the model that we'd want to use as well. And I'll hit submit on that. And you see it's pasted in the command for resetting the last commit, and we can hit run there as well. Now let's see if we can undo in here as well. So if I just say undo that and hit enter, does it have the context? You can see there it's going back to the previous one. And there you go. It's actually retained the context of what we did in the terminal previously. Over in Cursor then, I'll try the exact same thing. So it's going to be Command K and the prompt box opens up down here. And again, we can select the model. I'll hit submit on this. That pastes in pretty much the same command there as we see that we did on Windsurf. And then I'll also ask it to undo that as well and hit enter. And you can see that it's gone ahead and pasted in the command that would undo that too. Slightly different here as we're using a different model, but it would perform the exact same. So I'd say relatively same experience there, just depends on the model that we were using. So that's the features then that I would say are identical between Windsurf and Cursor. The variance is just going to be down to the AI model you choose, and that experience is also going to vary a little each time just due to the nature of AI. So with those being identical then, let's check out the selling point of Windsurf, and that is Cascade, and we'll see how that compares to Composer in Cursor, which is a little similar. So Cascade is what shows up when you first open up Windsurf, you see right with Cascade. Now I do quickly want to point out this chat feature here, as I think this is great for developers that don't trust AI to make changes to their code, but they still want to have AI make suggestions. So if you're one of those who's been manually copy and pasting things into ChatGPT or Claude, then this one's good for you to avoid that context switching, as you can select your model down here. But let's go back to this powerful write mode then, and this is the reason that Windsurf calls itself the first agentic IDE. It's supposed to combine agents and Copilot, so it should do a lot for you. So I'm actually going to try this out with a test workspace here. And you see they have some example prompts of building full applications, so build splitwise or a personal website. I'm going to ask it to create me a to-do app using React. Now I'm going to intentionally leave this vague just to see what it does. Let's hit enter here. You can see it starts me a new window with Windsurf project. So it's just created a folder for me to put these into so I can test it. And it's trying to help me out. Now, interestingly, we've actually had an error here. So the model output wasn't aligned with the objective. That's quite cool that it's spotting that what the previous model gave it wasn't right. So it's going to go ahead and fix that. So they must be running a step on the model output to see if that aligned with what I first asked it. Next, we've got the command. So this is another feature, which is that Cascade can run terminal commands for you. Now, annoyingly, this is an annoying thing with AI, not Windsurf. It's trying to use create React app. Definitely don't do that in 2024. We want it to use V. So I'm actually going to click the stop down there and ask it to use V instead. And hopefully that carries on the context that you can see it's still trying to build that to-do app. And it's suggested a new terminal command for me. And now I can hit accept here. And I'll actually print out what that command finished with. As you can see, it's gone ahead and created that V application. Now it wants me to install my dependency. So I'll click accept on that as well. And that's going to run that for me. And you can see that that step there completed. It's installed all of the packages it needed. And now it's analyzing my structure. It wants me to create a components folder. So I'll click accept on that as well. And now it's going to go ahead and create the necessary components. So it's adding that to-do item and various other things. This is a great place while it does that to shout out this terminal feature. I've had one pain point with this, which is it's a bit unclear where this terminal actually runs. Sometimes if you run up the dev server, for example, using Cascade, it's unclear how you can go ahead and stop that. You can click stop step, but that doesn't seem to actually shut down the server itself. So it'd be nice if this terminal could go down here, for example, in the already integrated terminal with VS Code. So then we could go ahead and run things like Control-C or even use the up and down arrows to see what the previous commands it ran were. That's just one of the pain points that I've had. Hopefully they can go ahead and fix that. As you can see, it's created a load of different files for me. So we've got to-do item. We can actually go ahead and open these up now. We've got to-do list, app.jsx, and it started the CSS. And finally, you can see that we can go ahead and run the dev server. So I'll click accept here. It's started that up on localhost 5173. And I'll also click accept all to make sure this saves all of the changes. Now let's go ahead and see what this looks like. I'm actually quite excited. So here we go. I've run up localhost 5173. We've got a to-do app, and we can go ahead and add in a new to-do. It has a checkbox here. We can see there is an issue out the box, which is that the text isn't correctly colored. That's actually given us a great thing to go ahead and ask Cascade to fix. Before we do that though, let me just show that you can't do this in Composer. So if I say, can you make me a notes app in React, and I hit enter, you'll see that it does print out something similar. It's trying to create the necessary files, but it's actually unclear where it's creating these. At the moment, it's just creating these as artifacts up here. It's not modifying anything on my system, and it isn't even giving me commands of what we're actually running here. Is this a V app, create React app, or anything like that? So it definitely can't do the sort of creating a project bit. I would say that that Windsurf feature is a bit more similar to bolt.new. Back on Windsurf then using Cascade, I said it has white text on a white card. Can we fix this? And you can see it's made some changes to my CSS. So I'll click accept all and see if these have worked. And there you go, you can see it's actually changed it into light mode. And if we try out a to-do here and click add, we can see that the text is now showing up and it's correctly striking through as well. We can see everything. So it's made that change there. I actually renamed this to Windsurf app so we can actually see the difference between this and Cursor. In Cursor then, using the Composer, I asked it the exact same thing. It has white text on a white card. Can we go ahead and fix this? Now this actually seems to be making some changes here, but I'll click accept and I'll also click save all. Let's see what this looks like. Okay, so here in the Cursor app, it kept it in sort of dark mode with the background, but if I hit add here, it doesn't seem to have fixed the issue, which is actually quite interesting. Looking back in Cursor to see what went wrong, you can see it actually tried to use Tailwind here. This seems to be because it has less context of what our project was, and it just went to a default of what the AI model would itself. So it didn't pick up that we were just using CSS and no Tailwind, and it tried to fix it as a Tailwind issue. So that's where Windsurf comes out as a winner there. Back in Windsurf, another place that Cascade is supposed to excel at is just continuing your work. So say I wanted it to show the dates that we added things. If I go ahead and add date.now, and then I go down to here and say continue my work and hit enter, let's see if it correctly picks up the context. You can see it does actually say that we modified a file here, and it says you see I've added a date field. Let's update the to-do item to actually display that. So it's gone ahead and seen that I made a change in my app.jsx, and it knows it needs to make the change in to-do item. And back in the application, let's try it out. And you can see that the date has gone ahead and been added down here. I'll do the same thing in Cursor though. I'll say date and then date.now there, and then I'll say continue my work and see if it picks that up. And you can see it's actually still stuck on that styling issue, but it does ask me if I want to add the date and time. So I'll go ahead and ask if it can. And there we go, it gave that a go, and you can see it's got a to-do list, it made some changes. Let's check out our application, and you can see that it's correctly added in the date there. So there's a bit of a difference in user experience there, but I do think Windsurf comes out ahead. The last thing we'll compare then is the pricing. As you can see, both of them offer a generous free tier. With Cursor, you get 2,000 completions and 50 slow premium requests. You seem to get a little bit more out of Windsurf here. You get the Windsurf editor, you get unlimited rapid API autocomplete suggestions, you get unlimited in-editor AI chat, unlimited AI command. Now, I do think this will be with a different model, so not necessarily Claude, but it's still quite cool that you get a lot for free here compared to just the 2,000 completions you would with Cursor. And you see you also get Cascade, but in that chat only mode. Comparing the Pro tier though, you can actually see that Windsurf comes out at half the price at $10 a month, and you get all of the features that we just saw, but you get unlimited access to larger models, you get unlimited access to GPT-4o, Claude Sonnet, and various other things. You get unlimited access to Super Complete as well, and you also get 1,000 steps with Cascade, the full version where it can actually go ahead and make some choices for you using those agents. But that 1,000-step bit there is quite important to point out, in my opinion. I think that each time it does something, so when we were running commands in the terminal, that is counted as a step. So I don't know if you'd hit a limit yet. I personally haven't, but that is something to note, that it's not full and unlimited with that Cascade version. Compare that to Cursor though, where you get everything. You get unlimited completions, you get 500 fast premium requests per month, and then unlimited slow premium requests, and then 10 O1 mini uses per day. So I do think that Windsurf actually comes out better in terms of pricing, both on the free tier and that pro tier. There we go. Now, the last thing I want to say on this is I can't actually tell you which one is best. They're both quite similar, and they both have the goal of increasing your productivity. So go out there and try them both. They both have a free tier and also a free trial. Find out which one works for you. If you want my personal experience with it, it was that Windsurf's Cascade feature came out ahead in terms of the user experience. I just felt that Cascade was a little more natural to use, and it had a greater understanding of my project without me specifically referencing files. Try them out and let me know in the comments what you think. While you're there, also go ahead and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.